Hello and welcome to today's lesson. We're going to be working on questions from the second part of the lesson, Operations with Rational Numbers. So this is part 2 of 2 videos for that lesson in Study Island. So in this video, we're going to look at real life examples of negative and positive numbers and using those in word problems. Make sure as you're watching this video that you are taking really good notes so that you can refer back to those when you are trying these problems on your own and studying. If you ever need to get caught back up because I'm going too fast, just pause the video and rewind and unpause when you're ready to get started again. If you can even pause at the beginning of a question, work the problem out for yourself. Make sure to show all of your work so that you can compare it to my work in the video, and then you can see areas that you're doing really well in and areas that you still need help with. I am so glad that you are joining us today, and let's go ahead and take some notes. In this video, we're going to be dealing with rational numbers in word problems. So positive and negative numbers in real life scenarios. So the big 3 real life scenarios that we could talk about with positive and negative numbers is sea level, money, and temperature. So sea level, if you are at sea level, that's 0. If you're going above sea level, so like if you're climbing a mountain or going up a hill, that elevation, the amount that you're above sea level, is going to be a positive number. Now, if you're going below sea level, then those are going to be negative numbers. So whether that's someplace like New Orleans where the land's just below sea level or in water, either of those places, the elevation will be a negative number. The other place is money. And if you're depositing money or you have a credit, so that means you don't owe money, the opposite of owing money, those are positive numbers. Now, if you have a debit, so you owe money or you took money out of an account, you withdrew money, that's going to be a negative number. And then last, the big one is temperature. And that's probably the one that you've dealt with the most often so far. So if it's below 0, if it's really, really cold out, that's going to be a negative temperature, a negative number. If it's warm out, if it's above 0, that's going to be a positive number. Then here is just a table that recaps everything that we just talked about. Here are real life instances where you would want to use a negative number, and here are real life instances that you'd want to use a positive number. So this is probably easier to have copied down in your notes than the pictures, but either way will work. This question says Brian rides his bike for 0.28 of a mile per minute. If it takes him 20 minutes to ride his bike to his friend's house, how far away does his friend live? So this here says 0.28 of a mile per minute. So that means for every 1 minute he's biking, he's going 0.28 of a mile. So around 1/4 of a mile, just a little over. So if you're trying to figure out what he goes in 20 minutes, that's going to be a bigger number. So we're going to need to multiply 20 times 0.28. Now you can do that straight on your calculator, or you can work it out longhand, whichever works. Either way, you should get 5 6/10. And that's going to be your final answer, which is D. Number 2 says the price of a gallon of gasoline is $3.60. The price when Ryan's mother started driving was 1/4 of the current price. What was the price of gasoline when Ryan's mother started driving? Well, here it tells us it was 1/4 of the current price. Tells us to multiply. So the word of always tells you to multiply. So you're going to take 1/4 times the current price. And they tell us that the current price is $3.60. So 3.60, and that zero is on the end, so that's up to you. And we can go ahead and just put a 1 under that decimal and multiply across. So 1 times 3.6 is 3.6, and then 4 times 1 is 4. And so now we have this fraction, and this fraction here means to divide. So you can either do it longhand. You can take the 4 up front and write the 3.6 underneath and work it out longhand, or in your calculator you can just press 3.60 divided by 4 equals, and either way you're going to get an answer of 90 cents. So that's going to mean that choice C is going to be your final answer. This question says Lindsay went skydiving. When she jumped out of the plane, its elevation was 13,000 feet. She was free falling for 10,000 feet, and then she deployed her parachute. At what elevation did Lindsay deploy her parachute? So if she's falling, that means that her elevation is decreasing. So that means we're going to be subtracting because we want those numbers to get smaller. So we're going to take her starting elevation, which is 13,000, and subtract the amount of feet that she fell, which was 10,000. And you can do this by hand, or you can do it in the calculator. It's pretty simple by hand. So I went ahead and did it by hand. So it's going to be at the 3,000 feet is when she deployed her parachute. So she's still above sea level. She's still in the sky. So that's why it's a positive 3,000 feet, and why your final answer is going to be B. Next example says the Furnace Creek Airport in Death Valley, California has an elevation of 64 meters below sea level. The lowest point in New Orleans, Louisiana has an elevation of -2 meters. So that means it's also below sea level. What is the difference between the elevation in New Orleans and the elevation of the Furnace Creek Airport? So difference tells me that I'm going to be subtracting, and I'm going to be taking the elevation of New Orleans minus the elevation of the Furnace Creek Airport, because I do them in the order that the problem presents when it says difference. So the elevation of New Orleans is -2, and I'm going to take that minus the elevation of the Furnace Creek Airport. Now, the Furnace Creek Airport is 64 meters below sea level, so that means it's also negative elevation. They just didn't put the negative symbol there. You had to read that in the problem and realize that when it said below sea level, that is going to be a negative number also. And you're going to subtract those. So remember, when you are adding and subtracting integers, if it's subtraction, the first sign stays the same. You change the subtraction to addition, and you change the sign of the second number. So it's change. And then I have -2 plus positive 64, which is going to be 62 meters. And it's a positive number, so that means D is going to be my final answer. This next question says Lainey is sliding down a water slide that is 430 feet long at a rate of 43 feet per second. How long will it take Lainey to travel from the top to the bottom of the slide? So she's going down a slide that is 430 feet long. And so for every second, she goes 43 feet. So that means these numbers are going to be getting smaller And since we're dividing the slide into pieces for each second, we're going to want to divide these numbers. So you can set it up and do it longhand like this, or in your calculator, you can press 430 divided by 43. Either way you do that, you're going to get an answer of 10. And since she's not going back in time, since she's going forward in time, that's going to be a positive 10 seconds, which is going to make your final answer D. This next question says, Pillar used 5 reusable shopping bags on a recent purchase she made at a grocery store. Each bag decreased the amount she spent by 10 cents. What was the change in the amount Pillar spent at the grocery store by using the reusable bags? So we know that she used 5 reusable shopping bags, and each bag decreased the amount she spent by 10 cents. So here we have 2 keywords. We have each that tells us to multiply, and we have decrease that tells us to subtract. Well, to get the total amount we subtract, we need to find out what 5 bags total decrease the amount by. So each bag is 10 cents. So you're going to take 5 times 10 cents. And you can, once again, either do that in your calculator or you can work it out longhand like this. Either way, you're going to get an answer of 50 cents, that it reduced her total purchase by 50 cents. Since it's decreasing the bill to show the type of change to the bill as being less, as it decreasing, we're going to need that to be a negative 50 cents. So the final answer here is going to be D. This next question says, Tammy accidentally wrote a check for more money than she had in her checking account. When she got her statement, she saw that her balance was negative $48. If she deposits 1/3 of the money owed into her account, what will be her new balance? So here, it tells us that she's depositing 1/3 of the money owed. So once again, remember, owed means to multiply. So I'm going to take 1/3 times the amount she owes. And she owes $48, so it's going to be a negative 48. So I'm going to take 1/3 times negative 48, and so I'm going to put a 1 over the 48. And then I'm going to take 1 times negative 48, which is negative 48, and that's my numerator. And then I'm going to take 3 times positive 1, because the negative either goes with the top or bottom, not both. And 3 times 1 is 3. And so once again, a positive times a negative is a negative, so my answer sign makes sense. And then I need to simplify this. So I can divide a 3 out of both the numerator and the denominator. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 48 divided by 3 is 16. So this is equal to negative 16 over 1, or just negative 16. And so that's the amount that she deposits. So she is depositing $16. It's just because she started out with a negative balance that this answer ended up being negative. However, it's not asking how much she deposited. It's asking what is her new balance going to be. So I need to rethink through these signs. So her starting balance is negative 48. And when you deposit something, that's a positive amount. You're going to add that in. So that means she's going to add in the $16. And you see over here how they give you the 16s as answer options? They're hoping that you don't finish this problem, so don't let them trick you. And so when you're adding negative and positive numbers, if they're opposite signs, you're actually subtracting. you remember the rules from part 1. So if I subtract here, I end up with 32, and then I take the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number here is 48. So that's going to be negative 32 is what her new balance is. So she still owes the bank $32. And so that's going to be our final answer, which is A. This question says the temperature of a city at sunset was negative 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was pretty cold. Overnight, the temperature decreased by 11 degrees Fahrenheit. What would be the lowest temperature overnight in that city? So decreased tells us that we're going to subtract. So I'm going to take my starting temperature, which was negative 2, and I'm going to decrease it by the temperature change, which was 11. So I'm decreasing it by 11. When I have subtraction, the first sign stays the same. The subtraction changes to addition, and I change the sign of the second number. So this problem, I can rewrite it as negative 2 plus negative 11. Now when I'm adding two negative numbers, I add those numbers and the sign stays the same. So I'm going to add 2 plus 11 is 13, and the sign stays the same, so it's negative 13. So that means the overnight low was negative 13 degrees Fahrenheit, making my final answer C. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you learned something new.